Switching now to the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, it looks like they've reached a rough plan, a rough deal to normalize relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel.
Yeah, this is interesting as well. We're going to talk about this more with retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and President of the London Centre for Policy Research, Tony Shaffer, and Senior Fellow at the America First Policy Institute and Newsmax contributor, Fred Fleitz. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today.
Good morning.
Fred,
Here.
I'll start with you. Where does this rough framework of a deal between the US and Saudi Arabia to normalise relations with Israel, where does it actually stand at this moment?
Good morning. Well, there is no deal. This is the Biden administration trying to claim credit for something that is years away from being implemented, if it ever is. Saudi Arabia would have to cut its ties with China. Israel would have to make peace with the Palestinians. We would have to give a defense pact with the Saudis, also help the Saudis to develop nuclear reactors and uranium enrichment. These are all extremely difficult things to resolve, especially Israel offering some type of peace arrangement with the Palestinians, which we know the Palestinians will reject. They reject every peace offer ever offered by Israel. I hope the Biden administration pulls this off. I really do. But I think they are desperate for foreign policy achievements. So they're claiming credit for something that is notional at this point and is years away at best from being implemented.
Fred, I do agree with you that they are desperate for foreign policy achievements here, but I don't think the Palestinian peace deal is really something that needs to be on the table. I understand the China relationship is something that gets in the way, but Saudi Arabia and Israel have had a relationship under the table for years now. And as we know, Israel and the Palestinians are no closer to making peace. And you're right, the Palestinians push back on everything. So if Saudis are already conducting deals with Israel under the table, what does it take for them to be able to come forward? Does the Palestinians really mean that much?
No, I think that's a good point. There is a relationship under the table between the Saudis and Israel right now. Netanyahu has actually visited Saudi Arabia, which was huge. And it could be that this effort for the Israelis to make peace with the Palestinians, the Saudis just want the Israelis to make an offer. Maybe the Saudis realize this isn't possible and they'll move beyond that. But for now, it appears that this is a condition of this agreement.
Fair enough.
We'll have to see how that goes out.
And I want to just take a look. Senator Tim Scott yesterday on America Right Now, hosted by Tom Basile, was talking specifically about this deal. Let's take a listen.
Let's talk about national security. You are on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Are you going to be supporting this new Saudi-Israel deal?
Well, the very few things I've seen from this administration on foreign policy I would consider smart. The one thing I can tell you is that you saw the release of $6 billion recently in exchange for hostages. And when you see that deal happening, the one thing you could say, I said this 7 years ago when President Obama did the same thing, around $500 million, that the price on the heads of Americans will increase with the decisions of that administration. Mm-hmm. This administration, by releasing $6 billion, is actually increasing and putting more Americans in greater jeopardy.
So, Colonel, I'll go to you on this.
Yeah.
I think it is fair to say that Senator Scott has a very good point to be made there. And, $6 billion, that could fund terrorism or their nuclear program. Am I wrong?
You're correct. Let's break this out a little bit. That $6 billion does two things. As the senator said, it raises the price on every American's head as a potential hostage. Look, they saw this with the Russians, with Brittany Grenier, who was taken and gotten back because, they wanted something back in return. And let's be clear on this, Michael. The issue of that $6 billion will permeate the entire sphere of those working against us. The Iranians have never stepped away from their nuclear program. They outsourced it. Some of that $6 billion is going to go to a place called North Korea. North Korea has continued to develop nuclear weapons and delivery systems on behalf of the Iranians so that they're technically not violating the joint agreed upon framework. And as Fred was saying, this issue with Saudi, the Bidens are trying to take credit for something they're actually jeopardizing. The Saudis have never been on board with the joint agreed upon framework that the Iranian deal was the Obama idea on that. So in essence, everything that the Biden administration is doing undermines its own policy. And ultimately, if this money goes to the places, which I know it will, there will be weapons developed that will eventually be used against the United States and our allies. So it's a bad deal all around.
Yeah, that was a really great point that you raised about the Saudis' opinions on the nuclear deal. But you mentioned North Korea there, and there's talks of a war brewing in the Pacific. Many people are fearing that. The Philippines is using this World War II ship in the South China Sea as a military outpost, and now China is attempting to force the Philippines to vacate this ship. And this all as Kim, North Korea's Kim, calls for his military to sharpen their plans as South Korea and the US have that large-scale drills. Fred, I'm going to come back to you. Does this, or when you think about all of these things here, could this potentially lead to a conflict in Asia?
It's very concerning when we keep seeing these provocations involving China in the South China Sea. It has rammed ships in the South China Sea, including Philippine ships, for China to try to assert its sovereignty over the entire area. I'm really concerned about it. Can I jump briefly to this hostage deal that we have with Iran? I wrote an article that appeared on Newsmax.com on Friday. This is part of a huge, secret, unwritten deal, and I've written about this also in American Greatness, that the Biden administration has negotiated with Iran so they can exchange hostages. Iran will get $6 billion in sanctions relief. And since it's not written, Congress can't see it. Congress can't oversee it. Congress can't vote it down. It's really quite remarkable.
Wow, it's amazing. Colonel, I'd love to get some more time with you as well, but we'll have you back right away. Colonel Tony Shaffer, Fred Fleitz, thank you so much, guys. We appreciate having you on in the morning.
Thanks for being with us, gentlemen.
Thank you.